Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lunch with Lisa. I am so sorry I'm a little late this morning or this afternoon. It's actually 12:01 here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I do apologize. I was on the phone with another fabulous woman, and I just enrolled her in my 12-week coaching course called Emotionally Naked Dating, END, and it's all about how to get emotionally naked and bring a wonderful man into your life. Getting emotionally naked happens to be the foundation for a loving, lasting relationship, not physical nakedness, but emotional nakedness. It's something that very, very, very few people know how to do. We don't know how to create this consciously. And that is what I teach my women in my 12-week course. It is the secret ingredient to lasting love. All right, so today we have a wonderful, wonderful topic. Should you stay friends with your ex? Oh boy. This is probably a loaded topic for a lot of you. And I'm kind of curious how many of you are friends with your exes? How many of you manage to stay friends with your exes? Kind of curious. Anybody out there want to chime in here and tell me if you think this is a good idea, a not so good idea? Oh, I got one thumbs up, so maybe that means somebody is. Hi, Cheryl. So Cheryl says she is friends with an ex. Cheryl, how is that working out for you? Is it a good thing? I'm curious. Somebody here said um, it takes years for it to something or other. I don't know. It took years to become friends with your ex. Fascinating. Someone else said it's not good. Linda Howard Mashburn says, I'm not friends with my exes. One person said some, it depends on the person and the reason for the breakup. I think that that's very true. So here's what I would say. It is extremely important. It really does matter what the reason for the breakup was. And, if you were married and you're getting divorced, I think it is incredibly important that you stay friends with your ex so that you can co-parent together. I think it's extremely, extremely important to have a healthy friendship with an ex so that you can co-parent. Are any of you parents co-parenting? Yep. Casey says it's important if you have kids, the better the relationship, the happier the family. I couldn't agree more, Casey. What I would say is that it's very, very important to keep the friendship clear, not to mix a sexual relationship, start sleeping with your ex and crossing those boundaries. Sometimes that can happen and it can get really messy with couples where they are split up, but where they've split up and they're no longer together as a couple, but they still sleep with each other. They have sex. They figure, well, we're not seeing anybody right now, so why not? That's where it can get really kind of dicey. So you want to be really certain to keep very clear boundaries with an ex, that if you're split up and the relationship is over, that if you're co-parenting, that you keep very clear boundaries there and that you don't mix a sexual relationship, a friends with benefits kind of situation with a breakup, especially when there's a divorce involved. So I'll share my story, which is a very unusual one. And there's a difference, of course, between if you're dating and you're just getting to know, if you're dating, it's one thing when you think of an ex, if you have children together and you separate or you divorce, you absolutely want to do everything in your power to keep that friendship alive and to keep it healthy for the sake of your children. It is very different when you're dating. That's a totally other kind of situation. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I did want to share what happened with my ex-husband, who was extremely unhealthy. It was not a good relationship. We were together for a total of 13 years. We were married for 5 of those years. And my ex, as it turned out, was a pathological liar. And we were in a really dysfunctional marriage. I was terrified to leave him because I was clinging to him. It was also a very codependent relationship. Codependent relationships can sometimes last way too long. People become codependent with each other, they're enmeshed, and they can lean on each other and sort of build a codependency where two people are kind of limping through life together, which really does describe my ex-husband and me. I was terrified to leave him because I was very codependent, not just with him, but in all of my relationships. And I didn't know how to separate myself from other people. I was extremely needy, and I would, get enmeshed with girlfriends or with men. And so I stayed with this guy. We were going nowhere in our lives. And at one point, I really did hit bottom. I mean, I can see where, in a 12-step paradigm, I really did hit bottom. I started to see that my life wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't progressing. I kept hoping or blaming my husband for why I wasn't moving forward in my life. And at one point, I sat up and I just said, Lisa, you've got to start to take responsibility for yourself. This isn't his fault, his problem. He is also dysfunctional. You're both dysfunctional together. And my feeling was like we were in a sinking ship and we were both drowning. We were both going down, and I could only save one of us. And I knew the one person I could save was me. And so I got clear with myself that I couldn't do it in the marriage. I needed to get my own act together, and that he had to get his act together, and that we were holding each other down, that we weren't growing together. So I finally left the marriage. And when I did, I was able to see things clearer. And I started to see who my husband really was. I was too close to him, and I was too needy, and I was holding on so tightly that I couldn't see things objectively. And it wasn't until I got some perspective and some distance that I was able to gain perspective on what was going on there. And I was able to see that he was a pathological liar. These lies that he had told over the course of our relationship. He used to borrow money from people and then not pay it back. And he would lie and spin tales and stories, and he would cut off friendships, and very deep, really incredible friendships would be lost. And I couldn't, because it was over the course of many years, I didn't really see it clearly. But then once I started talking to some of our former friends and people we knew, it all started to make sense to me that there was something much deeper going on. And at one point, he cashed a check from me that he was not supposed to cash for $3,000. And when I called him and I realized the money was missing from my bank account and I asked him about it, he said, oh, it was an accident, that his assistant had grabbed a stack of checks and my check was in there, and it was an accident, and he would put the money back in my bank account, which he never did. And it was part of our divorce agreement that he would pay back this money by a certain date, and he never paid it back. And I was at the time importing from Mexico. I had gone down to Mexico, and he was supposed to put the money in my account before I drove back. And this was at a time where it was still safe to drive in Mexico. I had an importing business, and I used to import folk art from all over Mexico. And I would go to these little villages, and I would, this was over 30 years ago. I would buy folk art from these different artisans. Anyway, what happened was he didn't put the money back, and I knew I was never going to see it again. And it really was a day of reckoning for me, where I saw everything clearly, maybe for the first time in my life. And so I allowed myself, I said, you have a 3-day drive back to the border, and you can process this thing, but once you cross the border, you're going to let it go. And I gave myself permission to just think every horrible thought I could, and all, process through my anger, my shame over the relationship. And I gave myself permission to just feel how violated I felt. And what I realized was that this is who he was. He had to do this. He had to steal money from other people to get by in life. But I could make that $3,000 back, in a weekend. It wasn't a big deal for me at that point. My business was doing great. It was more the idea that the man that I had loved and slept next to for 13 years of my life and lived with and, loved, that he would do something like this to me. And it felt horrible. I'd seen him do it to other people, but not to me. And so it really felt awful to see that I was no different than anyone else, that he was a thief and that he would stab anybody in the back to get what he needed. And I crossed the border and I let it go. And when I got back to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I was living at the time, I called him. And this is back to not being friends with your exes. I called him and I said, I'm going to let this go. I said, you keep the money, it's yours. But I said, you've lost the right to ever call me again. And I said to him, I want to save you. I want to save you from yourself, and you don't want to be saved. And I can't help myself. Like, I want you to be a good person and I want to help you, and you don't want my help. This is what you do, and this is what you're going to keep doing. And I said, you've lost the right to ever call me again. This is where our roads diverge. You go this way and I'm going to go that way. And I knew I had to cut this relationship off so I could grow, so that I could get on with my life, so that I could stop thinking that there might be a miracle healing, or that we would ever get back together, or that there would ever be a happy outcome to this relationship. And I said, don't ever think on any given day of any given year, month of any given year, that I will be happy to hear from you, because I won't. I said, this is where we go our separate ways. And I said, I wish you all the best. I only want good things for you, but don't ever call me again. And that was the end of that relationship. I've never heard from him in all the years of my life since I left that message. I have never heard from him again. And I don't expect that I ever will. The wildest thing about that is there's no trace of him online. If I look him up, I can't find him. I don't know if he went into witness protection. I don't know if he's gone from the face of the earth. I don't think so. But I just cut that relationship off and I never looked back. And it was an act of power. It was an act of power, especially with someone who was abusive and who was an addict. He was a pathological liar and who was unsafe for me. And to be honest, that was a very dark time of my life. And once I cut that off and I let that go, I feel like I've only been walking towards the light ever since. And I see people hold on. I see them stuck in those relationships. Luckily, we didn't have children, so I didn't have to stay connected to him. I was able to just cut this thing and go on with my life. And I don't miss him. I'm glad that chapter of my life is over. But it was really powerful and empowering for me to do that because I had been so codependent and so dependent on him for so many years of my life. So let's talk about dating and letting go of people when you're dating. It is my greatest recommendation that when you are out in the dating world and you really are on a mission, on a journey to find the guardian of your soul, true love, lasting love, as I call it, I think it is very important to keep that path clean and clear. So I do not recommend holding on. If you met a guy and you didn't really date, but you're both in agreement that it would just be a friendship and that you like each other, but there's absolutely no romantic connection from either side, then yes, you can have a friendship. But here's the problem. A lot of us want to say, oh, let's be friends and whatever. And we do that because we're trying to be nice or we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But the truth is, it's kind of like the booby prize for the other person. If you're the one cutting it off, but saying, oh, you're good enough to be my friend, but you're not really good enough to be my girlfriend, or you're not really good enough to be my boyfriend, but I'd like to have you as a friend. It seems like kind of a booby prize. And often what happens is one person, the one, who isn't ending the relationship or cutting it off, is actually the one who has more feelings for the other person. And so they feel horrible. They just feel awful. Or they try to stay in it, hoping for an opening, hoping for that opportunity where they will be able to turn it around, and they would be able to find that footing or prove that, oh, this really is great. And this really is, this person, like, oh my God, I really do love you. And they're waiting for that moment where it will all come back around. And the other person is really done. They're not interested in a relationship. They really are either just trying to let you down easy, or they may be taking advantage of the friendship for other reasons. Like they think that you're a great confidant. They like the friendship, they like hanging out with you, but they really have no romantic interest. And then when they do find a romantic partner, they'll cut the relationship with you off in a heartbeat. So you want to be very, very, very careful of setting yourself up for something like that, and also putting someone else in a position like that. Has anybody ever had that happen? I'm kind of curious, where you're dating somebody, where you've been dating someone that you really, really like, and that person tells you, I'd really like to be friends. And then you're really attached. You don't want to let go because you really like the person. But then they're out dating. Maybe they're consulting with you, or maybe even the two of you are talking about your dating experiences. But the truth is, you really have feelings for him. And you're really hoping that it'll work out, that this person will come back, that he'll find you attractive. Has anybody ever been in that situation or put themselves in that situation? Because it's a terrible spot to be in. You never, ever, ever want to continue a relationship or a friendship with someone who is more interested in you than you are in them. It is really, really, really painful for the other person. It is a horrible, horrible situation to be in. So no, even if you really liked someone, even, I know somebody who's going through a breakup right now, and this question actually came from her. And the truth is, I think it would be better. And, it's not even just better to cut it off because of the feelings, but it's also better just to keep the path clear. If you're really on a mission to find your person, you don't want to keep cultivating a bunch of friends unless it's mutual, unless it's really mutual for the two of you that you want to stay friends. So I'm trying to think if I ever stayed friends with any of my other exes. You know, it's great. I have to tell you, neither my husband nor I are friends with our exes. I have one ex that I actually that I actually stayed friends with. One. One. Yeah, one. Um, yeah, one friend, actually one ex-boyfriend, and Benjamin's met him, but he doesn't even live here. And I can tell you, like, we may be great friends in the sense that I would pick up the phone. I have a really, I have a big space in my heart for him because I think he's a really terrific guy. There's absolutely no sexual interest and or romantic interest. And even when we dated, you know, I never had the kinds of feelings for him that I have for Benjamin. But yeah, it was somebody who I had a dear relationship with, but somebody I was never really in love with. So we have a few comments. I am friends with some of my ex-boyfriends. We realized we would be better friends than lovers after dating for 6 months. We enjoy each other's company. We love each other, but are not in love with each other. So again, it sounds like it's mutual and like you both are on the same page, and it's nice to have those friendships, but you're not in love with each other. So there's not one of you who has more feelings for the other or is trying to hope that that something will develop. So that's great. I can't say I've had anything like that. I've only had exes reach out to reminisce about the past and how he was immature and I was more of a grown up. Well, that's nice. Yet I was younger than him. We are in contact, yet I wouldn't call him a friend. Well, that's wonderful validation for sure. Cynthia says, I found myself in that situation and I just cut that man out of my life. And he can keep the money. That's great, right? Right, Cynthia? He can keep the money. Who cares? But yeah, you don't want someone like that in your life. I think what the wake up call for me was realizing that I had been married to this man and that he would turn around and do something like that to me. I mean, that was a heartbreak, just to realize that this man who I was in love with for years and lived with and spent my life with, that was the note we ended on. But, those were his true colors. In fact, when I called my ex-husband's mother and I told her what happened and that we were getting divorced, she actually said to me, oh my God, I had hoped he had changed. She said, I had hoped he had changed. So even his mother knew who he was, which was really a shame. I don't hold any grudges. It's been over a decade since that relationship. He asked me for advice, and I did give him that. With that, he also asked for forgiveness about how he acted when we were in the relationship. I forgave him. It's been so long that I haven't thought about that until he brought it up. Well, clearly he felt badly and he was, wanting to make amends for how he treated you. So that's really, really wonderful that he wanted to reach back out and clean that up. That's really, really great. All right, everybody. This is a short Facebook Live. Thank you so much for joining me. Please know that that I do these every Monday from 11:30, usually from 11:30 to 12:30 Mountain Time. Today I was a little late because I was enrolling another wonderful woman in my coaching program. If you're interested in knowing more about that, please go to lisashield.com and you can find the link to just click the link there and you can watch my my presentation. And the other thing I would love to tell you is that if you want to listen to my podcast, you can go to DWD Pod. You can send me suggestions for this podcast. We turn this into a podcast, so you can go to DWD Pod at lisashield.com, and I will take your suggestions and I will do a whole presentation, a whole podcast on your topic. You can also go to Dating Without Drama, which is what the DWD stands for. And you can go to Spotify, you can go to Audible, you can go to Spotify, Audible, and Apple, or anywhere where you get your podcasts. And you can rate and like my podcast and sign up. And the last thing, and my favorite thing of all, is that I do on Sundays at 10 a.m. I do a Facebook Live with my husband, Benjamin Shield. It is called Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. We also turn that into a podcast, so you can find me in all those different ways. I'm Lisa Shield. This has been Lunch with Lisa, and please tell your friends and come back and see me again next week. All right, everybody, lots and lots of love. Happy dating. Get out there. Keep going. Find the guardian of your soul, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.